Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation for um, our Yapla webinar. Today, we'll be discussing mostly events and registrations, all our best practices for using Yapla. So I'll let everyone present themselves. If you could give us maybe the name of the associations you're affiliated to, it would be really interesting to know who's with us today. I'm going to present myself. My name is Mathieu. I'm a customer success manager with Yapla. I'm mostly responsible to welcoming our new clients, integrating them within the system, and training their staff or everyone working for the association on how to best use our product. So today we'll be focusing our presentation mostly on events, but before that, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the interface that you're using today to watch this webinar. So at the bottom right corner of the screen, you'll see three tabs: questions, chat, and survey. For questions, any questions that you have, please use the tab questions. It allows other people within the presentation to upvote your questions. So if there's similar questions being asked, or you're curious to know what people are asking about, it will help me just prioritize the questions that I'm answering. Chat, if you want to present yourself, say hi. If you have any comments, you can use this to interact with me, but also with other people. And the survey will be there at the end of the presentation, just to know if you enjoyed the presentation, and if you want to give us feedback, we'll provide you an email address to send it out to. So thank you everyone for being here with me today, and I'll make sure to work as much as possible to explain everything that is possible with the event functionalities with Yapla. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the questions tab. So on today's agenda, we'll be mostly talking about the tips and tricks, the best practices for using the event functionalities, and make sure that you're optimizing all the processes required for collecting information, processing payment, but also using that information afterwards to make sure that you're reaching out as many people and are using all the tools available to you to get the best out of your events. So we'll be doing a little overview of the events-related functionalities. We'll be discussing about how to organize your rates and registration forms. We'll go through how to effectively communicate your event registration processes. And after that, automating communications and tracking registrations. We'll end the presentation with a little Q&A. So all the questions you'll be asking, if I don't have to, or if I'm not able to answer them as the presentation goes, we'll be addressing that at the end of the webinar. So, little overview of the events-related features. When you open your account with Yapla, it will be with the free plan. And the free plan will allow you to create a registration page, customize your forms, offer flexible and secure payment methods, so credit card, checks, cash. You'll be able to automate your tax receipts, and you'll also be able to automate your communications. So confirmation, thank you messages, reminders. We'll go over all of that throughout the presentation. So just a little demonstration of what I've just mentioned. If we look at our account here. So this is a demonstration account. I'll be going over the interface, the basic configurations to create an event. So when we're going into events here, usually you would have your list of events. So you'll see all the events names, the amount of registrations, start date, location, the basic information for them. Now, when you go into one specific event, you'll be able to have your registration list, the settings, and other tile here that are allowing you to add either complexity to the registration process or just more information in regards to what information is collected and how it's being used. So first thing would be to go into settings, and here you can give an event name, indicate what's the start date. If there's an end date and it's not a single day event, we can add an end date, have an image, description, and then you'll have more information that can be provided in regards to where the event will take place, who's organizing it. If there's speakers, you can add that as well. And when it comes to process and registration, multi-registration, these are simply settings that will dictate how exactly we will process the registration process. So allow online registration, allow the same email to subscribe several times. We can add a downloadable link to add to the calendar. And we can also have the identification step, making it possible for people to connect as members and then get access to member-specific fairs. There's other configurations that are added, and we'll be able to discuss that more a little bit later. When it comes to multi-registration, this is the possibility to offer to participants to register multiple people within the transaction. And there's configurations here that can help contextualize what form is being called for the additional participants. But again, we'll be able to talk about all of this later on during the presentation. So if we go back to our event, there's 3 steps that are really important when you're thinking about your event. The first one would be the prices, then the forms, and then the communication. And the reason I'm using that order is simply because it allows you to have a better understanding of how exactly your process will be for registration. So when we look at prices, you are able to create multiple rates. Here I have a general fare and I have a group fare. So it's a table of 6. But you would be able to have multiple fares that are added and would help you guide people in regards to what kind of registration they're supposed to go. So if we're looking at the general fare here, I've set it up to have an individual price, a limit of 100 people who can purchase that rate. And then I've decided to show it for everyone. So there's no distinction between, is it a member fare or is it a non-member? Then you could add a description, and here we'll be able to see how we are assigning a price and also a donation for that specific event. Then you can link that rate to a donation campaign. You can add options, you can specify rules for options, and you can assign a specific income account for your accounting. So once your prices are listed, next step would be to go with the forms. And the forms are fully customizable. You'll be able to add the native fields first to your forms, so first name, last name, email, the address of someone, and then you'd be able to create personalized field to collect more information that is maybe more contextualized to your specific event. So the reason I talked about the prices first and then the forms is because it is possible to call different forms according to the fare or the rate that's been added to your event. After that, we have the communications. The reason why I'm talking about the communications last is because it is possible to personalize your communication by calling specific fields within your forms to dynamically personalize the communication that will be sent out. There's multiple communication type for validated registration, for reminders, for thank you notes, for canceled registration. We'll get into that a little bit later. So this is a basic overview of how events are set up within Yapla and how it would be possible for you to create a registration process that is detailed, collect enough information for you to understand exactly who's participating to your event, and then simply have more possibilities when it comes to communicating with people after your event. So going back to the presentation. So next, we'll be talking about how to organize your rates and your registration forms. I went a little bit over it earlier, but here I'll be talking specifically about the visibility of rates and quantity management, customizing your forms, set up different registration periods, and offer options that are added to your different rates. So if we're going back to our interface here, we'll see that the rate visibility is something that can be assigned within your list of fare. So here I'm showing my rate to everyone, but it would be possible to offer a rate specific to members. So this event here doesn't have that kind of work, but if we go with our end of the year show, we can see that I have a general fare and a member fare. So the difference between the two is that here I'm specifying that this rate is only available for members. Person will need to connect to their membership space as long as they have a membership that's valid, and they will get access to that specific rate. Now the difference between the two is up to you. Here I made it cheaper, so it's a $5 fare instead of $10. It would also be possible to create different registration periods, meaning that I have regular, early birds, day of, but I could also have a member one that starts earlier. Here, the difference between the three of them is that I can assign those periods to my fare. So we can see here that I have my 3 period. Early bird is $5, then it goes to 10, then it goes to 15. And I can have the start date and end date for each of them. So it's a really good way to sort of incite people to register early, having multiple registration periods. Now, it doesn't have to be 3 folds like this. You can have just 2 folds. It can be 2 registration periods, one that's assigned for non-members and one that's assigned for members, meaning that you could give like a week for a member to register before everyone else in order to make sure that they have an available spot for the event. So there's different ways of using registration period in order to make it a little bit better for people, or to incite them to register earlier or to register throughout the period of registration. Now, when it comes to quantity management, there's different ways of doing that. The first one would be globally for your event. So if we look at the settings here and we go into process, it would be possible to make a global available seat for your event. Here we have 150 people that are able to register to the event. Now, it is also possible to specify in regards to your different fares how many are available. Here we can see that we have a limited amount because we do not want to discriminate in regards to, is it a member registering or is it someone who doesn't have membership? So it would be possible for me to say, I'm only allowing 50 people with the general fare, meaning that as soon as we hit the cap of 50 people, we won't allow people to register anymore using that fare. At that point, only members will be able to register. It's maybe not something that makes sense for your organization to work in a way like this, but if you have fares that are cheaper or fares that are specific to a kind of registration, it would be a good idea to maybe see, is it a limitation that we want to apply globally, or is it a limitation that we want to apply for specific fares? Now, in regards to customizing your forms, like I've said, there's different ways of using forms. First one would be to have one form that's called for specific, that's called for any kind of registration. And when we're doing this, it's possible to simply create your fields on the left side here by creating a new field. And then you can use any type of field type that would be more suitable to collect information, but also to use it afterwards. So for example, we have multiple choice answers, we have single choice answers, selection lists, email, address. So depending on the kind of information you want to collect, there's a field type that will be more appropriate for you to use in order to better exploit that information afterwards. So either when you're trying to segment your participation list, your participants list, or if you want to just have more information that is easier to use afterwards. Now, in order to create your form, it's simply taking the field and adding it to your form. It is possible to create more sections. So information in regards to the event. And then you would have another section here. So maybe adding the arriving time, the evaluation, and you're able to change the order of those sections as you wish. So there's really flexibility within that tool to make sure that your registration process is as simple as possible and easy to navigate. And that's really important when we're talking about events. You want to make sure that by going through the form, this process makes sense for people. So I highly recommend to test your own forms just to make sure that you understand what's the process of registration and what might be the little issues that you might encounter if you're someone who hasn't put the form together. For you, it makes sense. You've created the form, but someone who never looked into it, someone who's just trying to register, might have difficulties going through some of the information just because the way that you've created your sections or the way that you're asking questions is not as intuitive. So testing those registration processes is really important. Now, like I've mentioned earlier with the registration period, I'm not going to go over this again too much, but what I want to present is the possibilities of having a registration period for members and a registration period for non-members. So here I could have regular members, or actually simply going to add a period, so regular members. And then the start date will be the same as here, or actually no, the end date will be the same. But then the start date will be a week earlier. So start date was the 16th of May. We're going to start it on the 9th. And June, sorry. 16th and 9th. Yeah. So by doing that, we could go into our list of price, and then for members, instead of having an early bird, we can simply use the regular members and add it for $10. And then for our general fare, we'll remove the early bird. So someone going into your event page and not connected to their membership space will only see the registration or that fare here starting on the 16th of June. Whereas a member would have a week prior to that the possibility to register because they start on the 9th. So this is just two different ways of offering advantages to your members, either by making the fare cheaper or by allowing them to register before everyone else. So maybe it's something you're already doing, maybe it's something you're not doing, but you think could be interesting for the way you do events. But these are options that are available with Yapla. Now, when we're talking about offers or options, rather, we're talking about additional costs that can be added to your event. So here we see we have cocktail avant l'événement, or cocktail before the event. So it would be possible to say, well, if you want to add to your registration an extra cost in order to get access to the cocktail before the event, people will be able to simply select that option and it will be added to their bill. They'll be able to pay their entry price and their option price. And you can have multiple options depending on the plan that you're using with Yapla. It would be possible to use selection rules. So force people to select at least one option or select only one option. So there's really different ways of using this. It can be for merch, it can be for access to certain things. The possibility in regards to this are pretty limitless. So it would be possible for you to add additional things to your registration process. Now, going back to our presentation. We'll now be talking about effectively communicating your event registration process. So there's different ways to present your event with Yapla. So we'll talk about the mono pages. These are pages that are generated by the system automatically. So there's nothing to do with them. It will present all the information that's been added to the events. It will take all your rates, your forms, confirmation and communications, and will automatically create a page for you. Now, if you're using the Essential plan or any plan after that, you'll be able to create your own website, and using the event section module, that gives you more options in regards to how you present your information and how you present your different events. It's important to convey important information concisely, and don't be afraid to repeat the information. When we're talking about repeating information, is having the same thing said throughout the registration process. So within your event description, within your rates description, and within your confirmation messages and your automated communications. Important information, or rather, people usually don't take too much time reading descriptions and confirmation email. So it's important to repeat that information throughout the process. So if they're not reading the event description, maybe they'll read the email. If they're not reading the email, maybe they'll look at the description of your rates when they're doing the selection process. After that, we'll be looking at create a member-only page with exclusive events and how we can categorize our events. So going back into our interface here, we'll be looking at the website. So here we can see that we have an event page, but we also have the golf tournament and activities. So if we're looking at activities, these are events that have been categorized, meaning that it would be possible to say, well, I have sports events, or I have tutorials, classes, and then have different pages presenting those little segments of events. So here we're not doing that. It's a page that is presenting every single event available for registration within Yapla. So we have our end of the year show, charitable gala, the 2024 LGL conference. But it would be possible here, for example, to have all the activities. So events that have been categorized a certain way. And it's the same thing for events that are reserved for members. So it would be possible to create a page that would only show up in my events tab if I am connected to my membership space. And some association do not discriminate in regards to is the person a member or are they not. They don't have members only event, but we have a lot of organizations that will offer both. So events that are open to the public and events that are reserved to members. And if you still want to showcase your members only event to the non-members, it would be possible to create a page that only displays members events, but will not allow people that are not connected to register. So if one of your events only has rates that are reserved to member, people will be able to see them, but they won't be able to register. And it would be possible for you to suggest or have an interface that will say, if you want to register to this event, you need to first connect or become a member. So these are different ways to entice people to become members by seeing events that are available only for members and getting information in regards to what will be presented and what they would get access to by becoming members. But again, not an obligation. You could only have events that are available for the public, and that would work great. So when we're looking at presenting our events, there's different ways to do it. My personal preferred option is the mosaic. So it will present all the available events for your association in a grid-like fashion. It can be 2, 3, 4 rows or columns. You have control over what information is presented in the view list, but you also have the possibility to indicate what information is presented in the detailed file of your event. If we're looking on the admin side in regards to that, we can go into our event page. And here you have the edition, structure, presentation. Edition, you'll have an overview or presentation of what your page will look like. And you can see here you have your different sections. So when I click onto my sections where my events are presented, I can see that I'm connecting the event functionalities and I'm using the events section. Then you have tons of different options to modify that presentation or how exactly the campaigns are being displayed. Here I'm using Mosaic with 3 columns, and I'm putting the summary on the right. I could present it in the center, on the left. This really depends on how exactly you like the interface with those 3 options. I could have an introductory article if I want to present the event with a bit more information. And here in the detail view, I'll be able to indicate what information I want to be displayed in my detail page. So it's really easy to set up what exactly is being presented and how we want to present our events. Like I've said, it would be able to filter functions. So when we were talking about categories earlier, it would be possible to say, well, I only want to showcase events that are on category 1. And then the module would only showcase the events that have been previously or that's been assigned to that category. It would also be able to filter events by keywords or by groups. So it really depends on how precise you want to filter those events. It's also possible to filter by category or by tag, which you would be able then to say, well, I'm presenting all my events, but I want people to be allowed to only see the category 1, 2, and 3. It's going to be a little drop-down menu that's added to the interface. So there's really no need for coding when you're creating your pages with Yapla. You simply have to create your events, make sure that they're either categorized or not, and then you're able to present them in different ways, either calendar, unique event, but it's really as simple as it can get in regards to presenting your events. Now, we'll be talking about we can automate communications and track registrations. So all the communications with Yapla are personalized, and you have different types of communications that will dictate what exactly is the trigger of that communication. So validated registration, canceled registration, reminders for the event, or thank you notes for after the event. We'll also look at how we can add an electronic tickets and bills to the communications of your event. And then we'll talk about how we can customize the search for our participant list and the results in order to have an easier time filtering through the registrations that you've collected and to get the information that's most important as quickly as possible. So if we go back to our admin, and we go back to our event here. So the communications, like I've said, it's usually the last thing that I will set up because it will be influenced by a lot of the choices that you've made in regards to your rates and to your forms. So, whoops. If we look at the communications here, we can see that we have different communication type. The communication type will tell you pretty much what is the trigger of that communication. So if we look at validated registration confirmation to our responsible, the responsible is either the first person that's been added to the registration process, or if you are working with the registration responsible, that's an option for the registration process of your event. It will be the person that's identified as the responsible. You're able to specify the communication language and the target recipients. So here we're sending the communication to the responsible and also to the administrators of your account. It would be possible to specify which administrators are being added or a group of admin within your system. Then we have the communication itself. So we have the subject like any other email. Usually we want this to be something that is gives a good understanding of what the communication is for. We don't want people to receive an email and be a little bit confused, like, why am I receiving this? And then we have the content itself of the communication. So when we are looking at responsible first name, event name, company name, these are keywords here that are referring to the information of your event, of the billing of your event, and also the information that's been collected from your participants. So for example, here we have the first name, but if we want to be a bit more formal, it would be possible to go and grab the last name of the person as well. So this will take the information that's been collected in the forms during the registration process and inject it within the communication. So we could look at, hello, Mathieu Riendo. We are reaching out to let you know that we have received your completed registration for the event end of the year show. You will find the receipt attached. Best, the Yapla team. And then here we see that we have our bill that's attached. The bill is generated automatically after the registration period and when the transaction has been paid. It will take the information from the form, from the event, and will generate a bill that will be attached to the communication in the PDF format. Now, other attachments that are possible, here you have the ticket. It would be possible to add more documents if you have more, but for now we only have the ticket. Now, if we want to offer tickets, we have to first activate the electronic tickets for the event. And this will create a ticket that will then be able to be added to our communication. So if we go into the same communication type here, we can see that we have the ticket. And because I've activated it in my event, it will generate another PDF document that will give the information of the person, the rate that they've selected, the price they've paid, and they will be able to present this when they show up at your event. So There's really different ways of doing this, but usually for communications and depending on what information you're trying to communicate, it's a really good idea to maybe, especially for events where you need to prepare yourself, you need to bring something, outside activities, it's a really good time to provide that information. So what happens if it rains? What happens if there's not enough people to participate to the event? What are some of the things that you need to think about when coming on site? So is there a specific way to get to the place? Do you have to think about tools that you'll be needing for the event? So use communication to make sure that the participant that's just been registering to your event has all the information to enjoy your event or to know exactly how it will happen. Now, like I've said, communication types will give you the trigger of your event. So if we're looking at participants reminder here, well, that communication will be triggered either X numbers of days prior or after your activity. So we'll be using the same communication type if it's for a reminder or a thank you note. Thank you note will simply be days after the activity, and you can maybe add 1. So a day after the event, that communication will be triggered to every participant that has been registered to your event. And again, you can send it to the participant, you can send it to the administrators of your account. In regards to thank you note, I don't think it's necessary to have a copy to the administrators because it's just a lot of emails that might get into your inbox. But the rest of it is the same. You have the subject, you have the content, you can use keywords to provide more information. And again, it's just a way to thank people or remind them that the event is coming up. In the case of reminders, when we are setting it to prior to the activity, you can have multiple communications of the same type. So we could have a reminder maybe a month before the event, a week before, the day of. Obviously, we don't want to be too aggressive in regards to those reminders, but it's always a good thing to have multiple ones so that you can, again, repeat the information that's important for your members. So maybe they won't look at the email as much when they receive the reminder a month prior, but the day of, they might read the email and be like, oh, what am I supposed to bring? Is there anything I need to think of? So it's a really good way to communicate the important information using reminders like this. And again, you could add the ticket to those reminders. So if they deleted the email that they've received for the confirmation, at least they'll receive another copy of their ticket. And then other communication types would be canceled registration. You would have communications that are sent out for registration pending payment. So if you're allowing payment by check, that's the first communication that will be sent out. Once you receive the check and you validate its reception within the system, then people will receive the validated registration confirmation. So that's a really important part of the process, making sure that every step of the way, people get the information that they're supposed to get their bills, their tickets, and at that point, if you're able to communicate effectively the information, there's a lot less things to deal with on the day of the event. Now, I talked about customizing your search and the results. What I'm referring to is when you're looking at your registration here, it is possible for you to modify the information that is being displayed in your list. So for example, if for you the registration date is not an information that needs to be consulted right away, you're trying to get the general information of your registration, we want to have the important information available as fast as possible. We don't want to necessarily have to go through every single registration, click here, look at the form. No, if there's information that's important to know quickly, we'll simply click on the little tool here, and then it would be possible for us to have our fields selected and the available ones. So like I've said, for me, the registration date is not something that I necessarily want to know right away, but the arriving time is something that's important for me. I save my changes here, and then I would have that information displayed in my search result. So the good thing about this is that it's not only interesting to have that when you're consulting online, but if you're exporting that, it would be possible to export only the columns displayed on the screen. The reason why this is important is that on the day of the event, you'll most likely want to have a basic printed copy of your registration list. And you don't necessarily want all the information of your participants. You just want the important information. By customizing the information that's displayed in your list, this is the information that will be exported when you're selecting the option only columns displayed on screen. Obviously, you'd be able to export all the information that's been collected, but it wouldn't be as convenient for just a list of registration for the day of the event. Now, if we're looking at segmenting our results, when we're going into the advanced search here, you can see that you have a lot of fields that can be used to make your search more precise. So if, for example, I only want to know who bought a general fare, and I can simply search for this, and then I get the result for that. All the information that's displayed here, or all the fields that are available for search, can be modified just like the results. And it's the same interface. You have the fields selected here, the fields available, and if for me, for example, the third-party payment info is not something that I'm going to do search for because it's not how I segment my lists or my participants, but I do want to know the organization. So in that case, I simply add it to my selected list, and then I would get the organization name here, so I can actually just see whoever registered within a same organization or multiple organization. And by doing that, I click on search, and well, none of these organizations have people registered for the event, but it would be able to, in a list of maybe 100, 200 registration, have a better idea of who exactly has been registered according to X, Y, Z factors. So like I've said, it can be the organization names, it can be the rates, it can be the registration period, the status. So is it a canceled registration? Is it a validated one? So it's just a really good way to better understand who has registered, and if you're looking to export information from a specific group of participants, when you are searching, and for example, I'm just going to do a quick search that will create more than one result. So here we have 5 entries for the whole event, but I want to know all the CACRN that registered to the event. So I see here I have 3, and if I export this, it will only give me the information for the participants part of the search that I've just done. So it would be possible, for example, someone is responsible for general fare people, someone is responsible for members. Well, we can export for each of those responsible a list that will only include people that have selected the right fare. So there's different ways of using this to make it your event a bit more peaceful by collecting the right information, presenting it the right way in the system in order to not have to move too much within the interface. So again, these are different practices that maybe might not apply to your associations, but in my experience, it's something that is valuable for any event that you're creating. Just making sure that you have access to all the information you're looking for, and that you're able to search for specific participants or group of participants according to specific field search. So that's most of how we usually look at events building. Obviously, there might be specific context in regards to the way that you're doing events, the way that you're presenting your information, or you're trying to process registration. And it's really hard to make one presentation that will address everything. I hope that what I presented today at least gave you a good overview of how to best think about the registration process for your event, but also how after your event you can make sure that you've collected the information in the best way possible so that you can get a better understanding, maybe review the way that you've done things. Was there ways to improve our registration process? Was there a way to improve our communication before and after the event? And obviously, if you have any questions that are specific to the way that your association is doing things, feel free to get in contact with us. We'll be more than happy to look at the way that you're planning your events and maybe give you ways to improve the registration process with Yapla, and how you can improve maybe reaching out to new people that would not otherwise know about your event if you're not using a system like ours. Our goal here is to make sure that we're committed with your association to improve the way that you're doing things, but also the way that you're collecting information and working through your events. And if you have any suggestions in regards to ways that we could improve our tools, we're always open to hear from you. But you'll get to enjoy a really, really solid platform that, yes, allow you to manage your registration for events, but it's also possible for you to connect events with the members functionality, like I said earlier, by having either pages that are reserved to members or by having member fairs. It's possible also to transfer some of the registration costs of your event to a donation campaign and then generate the fiscal receipts for that amount. Like we talked a little bit about the website, so it really allows you to give a better display of your events and something that will be easy to manage and present to your community. All the accounting that's associated to your events can be personalized, so you can have different kinds of ways to offer more precisions in regards to how exactly money is coming into your account by assigning different accounting entries to your different events. Obviously, newsletters, if you want to present your event to your old list of contact, or if you want to reach out participants from your past events to invite them to your upcoming events, newsletter will be a great tool for that. Data and contacts are functionalities that are working really in parallel with other functionalities. There's no connection with data in regards to events, but it's a powerful tool. And if you want more information in regards to all the other functionalities of our system, we have other webinars, we have training videos that are explaining exactly how to set up everything, and we have guides online that will go step by step to explain how exactly you can use them. So Yapla is offering a voluntary contribution model. So if you are trying to get as much or the full 100% of the amount of the payments collected, it would be possible to go with the voluntary contribution model, which adds an extra step where we will suggest a contribution to Yapla. The person can increase it, lower it, remove it completely, but just by having that extra step, you are collecting 100% of the amount that you've set up for your events. So there's no fee, there's no commission. Obviously, if that step for you is something that you're not comfortable with, you could go with the commission model, and at that point you would have a commission that's taken out of every registration. So your community can choose to contribute to keep making free payments possible at Yapla. And as long as we have that model, we'll be offering an option for your association to collect 100% of what you've been setting up for your event. So there are different resources that are available for you if you're looking to get started with Yapla. There's our help center. You will find hundreds of different articles that explain to you step by step how to use our system, but also the best practices. So it's an invaluable resource that we put a lot of time into. Make sure to have a look. You'll find, like I've said, videos, guides, and articles for specific settings. Everything should be there. If ever you're not looking answers to your questions within the Help Center, we have a dedicated team of support that will be there to answer your questions, meet you to maybe share a screen or have a one-to-one conversation. And if we're unable to answer your questions within that meeting, we'll be making follow-up emails to make sure that everything has been answered. There's no issue with the way that you're using the platform. We also have a team of experts ready to accompany you for setting up your account. So if you're looking for our team to work with yours in order to set up your account as best as it can, make the configurations for you, think through the whole process, and be there to accompany you, you can get in contact with our team, and we'll be more than happy to see how exactly we can set up that process to onboard you within Yapla. There's, like I've said, there's a ton of content to inspire you. We have lots of association that's been using Yapla for the past 10 years. So there's a lot of examples that you can find of different associations that are using our tools. So now is the time for the survey. We're trying to better ourselves with each presentation, trying to make sure that we are offering all the tips and tricks that we have, but also all the different ways to use our system. So in the polls tab, you should see a quick so you should see now poll to just let us know, are you satisfied with the presentation today? Make sure in the chat to send us any feedback that you have in regards to other tools that you might want to have more information in regards to. If you have specific questions in regards to your events and your registration process, make sure to get in contact with us. You can get in contact with us at support@yapla.com, and our team will be more than happy to answer your questions, meet you, and see how exactly Yapla can help you. So now it's the Q&A portion of the webinar. If there's any questions, feel free to use the questions tab, and I'll be here for the next 10 minutes, just making sure that all questions are being answered. So we have one question in regards to a process within the registration steps of our events in regards to the multi-registration. So, or actually the process. So the registration manager is a mode that allows to assign one person within the registration, within the participants, as the person to be contacted for billing, for main communications. So the registration manager can be someone who participates to the event, in which case the information that's been provided for the registration form will be simply used for the registration form, registration manager form. And There's also the possibility of assigning someone who's not participating to the event as the registration manager. So this allows, for example, an organization to register a list of their members or a list of their employees, but to have all the accounting information and details sent out to the administrative department of the organization. So it's not something that's necessarily good for every context or every scenario, but it's definitely something that can be useful when it comes to managing bigger groups of participants, or participants that are coming from organizations where the people doing the registration is not necessarily someone who will be participating to the event. So different ways of using that tool. If you have specific questions in regards to the way that your organization is putting together their event, feel free to get in contact with us. We'll be more than happy to look into that with you. So I don't see any other questions. I'd like to thank everyone who's been here today with me. Hopefully we'll get to talk one-on-one and see how exactly Yapla can help you and your organization to thrive with our tool. And I'm looking forward to talk to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being with us, and have a great day.